Joining me now in this Sunday morning futures exclusive on the long-term economic impact tariffs will have on America is White House Senior Counselor on Trade and Manufacturing, Peter Navarro. It's great to have you this morning. We're so looking forward to hear your perspective and to get some clarity, because obviously Wall Street took a hit last week. The S&P 500 was down 9%, although it's still flat from where it was last year, Peter. Let's talk about the markets, the uncertainty out there, and the volatility. Do you expect it to continue? Because everybody keeps asking me if I think the market, where I think the market's going to open on Monday.
Sure. The first rule, particularly for the smaller investors out there, you can't lose money unless you sell. And right now, the smart strategy is not to panic, just stay in, because we are going to have the biggest boom in the stock market we've ever seen under the Trump policies. We will find a bottom in this market quickly. We will hit 50,000 on the Dow easily by the end of this term, and I have credibility on this. I remember, Jackie, the day after the election in 2016, I went on another network before the market opened. Futures were headed dead red down. And I talked about how tax cuts and deregulation and fair trade and strategic energy dominance would actually give us a boom. I said we'd hit 25,000 on the Dow, and all of that came true. We hit 25,000 easily and then some. 50,000 on the Dow. More importantly, we're going to have a broad-based recovery in the S&P 500. I don't know if you know this, Jackie, but most of the gains in the S&P 500 in the Biden years were just the Magnificent Seven AI-type stocks. And about 80% of the S&P 500 basically went nowhere. Little gains stagnated. What we're going to have this time is a very broad-based S&P 500 recovery. It's going to be led by the companies that manufacture here in America. And people should just sit tight, let that market find its bottom. Don't get shook out by the panic in the media. And life is going to be beautiful under Donald John Trump. And that's where we're headed.
Okay, and let's talk a little bit about the broader plan, because I think that's really important here. Tariffs are just a piece of it. They're a piece of it to generate revenue. But what the president wants to do is he wants to cut spending. He wants to slash spending. That's what DOGE is for. He's looking at deregulation. He's looking at cutting taxes. He's looking at bringing our overall revenue up and our deficit down. He wants to lower energy prices. Peter, at the end of the day, all of these things combined are very pro-business, they're very pro-consumer, and they're pro-growth.
Yes. Yes, and let's not forget, every economic report that's been coming out in the last month has been pushing us towards expansion and strength. I mean, we just had a blowout jobs number on Friday. You had 228,000 jobs. It was 50% higher than was predicted. So again, there's cognitive dissonance between what the media is saying, want us to push us into recession, and what's actually happening. I think you're right, Jackie, that the tariff and trade policy is just one chapter in a book that contains all these other beautiful things that we're going to do. If you just take, for example, the oil prices. Oil prices were $1 higher during the Biden years. For a commuting working family, that's about $1,000 worth of gas. The prices they had to pay. We're going to get that back for them. These tariff revenues, by the way, Jackie, $700 billion are going to raise a year, $6 to $7 trillion over the 10-year period. They're going to help pay for the tax cuts. I'll tell you this, Jackie, every single dollar that comes in tariff revenues that we take from the foreigners who've been cheating us are going to go right to the American public in terms of tax cuts and debt reduction, and that's going to be a good thing. And let's talk, Jackie. I think we need American people to understand, and I think many of them do, why we have to do what we're doing. $1.2 trillion trade deficit. We've exported $18 billion worth of our wealth since China joined the WTO in 2001 by running these trade deficits. And we've given away our houses, our office buildings, our food supply, our farmland. That's got to stop. It's threatening our economic prosperity, national security. And the reality here is that institutionally, the international trade system is designed to cheat us. They have systematically higher tariffs on us, but more importantly, and far more importantly, it's the non-tariff cheating. It's the VAT taxes, it's the currency manipulation, the dumping, the export subsidies, the fake standards that keep our agricultural products out and keep our cars out of Japan. It's all these things that these foreign countries do that are designed explicitly to cheat us and are sanctioned by the World Trade Organization. So President Trump says no more, no mas. Ain't happening on his watch. And that's where we're headed. We're heading towards a strong America that makes things again.
So what you're talking about here at home is a reindustrialization. You're talking about reprivatization, which is crucial and essential not only to our future, but also to national security. When you bring up the non-tariff barriers, there was a lot of conversation about how the reciprocal tariff formula was calculated, and you mentioned those non-tariff barriers were taken into account. So you've got a country like China now that's coming back and saying we're going to impose a reciprocal tariff. But you've got other countries, for example, Vietnam, coming and saying, we're going to take our tariff down to zero. Everybody wants to know what the president is going to do. Is he going to take Vietnam's tariff down to zero? Or because of those non-tariff barriers, does something stay on?
Jackie, I'm so glad you asked that question, because Vietnam is the poster child for the non-tariff cheating. Let me walk you through that. We run about $123 billion trade deficit with Vietnam. If you simply lowered our tariffs and they lowered our tariffs to zero, we'd still run about $120 billion trade deficit with Vietnam. And the problem is all of the non-tariff cheating that they do. Let me walk you through some of the things they do. The first biggest problem is that Vietnam is essentially a colony of communist China. China uses Vietnam to transship to evade the tariffs. How does that work? Vietnam sells us $15 for every $1 we sell them. And about $5 of that is just Chinese product that comes into Vietnam. They slap a Made in Vietnam label on it, and they send us here to evade the tariffs. But Vietnam is also the biggest dumper and biggest use of export subsidies. I don't know if you saw the clip of that beautiful Louisiana shrimp guy saying, hey, God bless Donald Trump for protecting us. You know who he was protecting him from? Vietnam. And we know that Vietnam dumps stuff. They do export subsidies because at the Department of Commerce, that's the one that slaps on the anti-dumping countervailing duties. So they do that. And then they have the VAT tax. They have a 10% VAT tax. They use some of those phony standards. And the sum and substance of all of this, Jackie, it's like every country around the world cheats us. But it's like fingerprints. They all do it in different ways. But it all comes down to the non-tariff cheating. It was interesting to hear Elon Musk at the beginning talk about a zero tariff zone with Europe. He doesn't understand that. And the thing that's, I think, important about Elon to understand, he sells cars. That's what he does. And if you look, for example, at the Tesla factories in Texas, they're assembly plants, and they get a lot of their content from China, Mexico, Japan, and Taiwan and elsewhere. What President Trump wants to do is turn Detroit back into Detroit instead of having Detroit in Mexico now like they have it. So, and the guy who, Brian, at that Liberation Day ceremony almost stole the show from the boss, the UAW worker. He pointed to all those empty factories in Detroit that can be rapidly filled up. We got to make... We can't just be an assembly nation assembling cars in Spartanburg, BMWs with German engines from Bavaria. We can't do that anymore.
And we need to assemble. So if I can just circle back to Vietnam, then does that mean the tariff stays?
Yes. I mean, look, here's the thing. This is not a negotiation. This is a national emergency based on a trade deficit that's gotten out of control because of cheating. We're always willing to listen. That's what Donald Trump does best. But I want to just say to the world here, if you want to come and talk to us, don't say you want to lower their tariffs and be done with it. It's the non-tariff cheating. Stop manipulating your currency. Stop dumping stuff in. Europe, take your 19% VAT tax down to zero. Don't put these fake agricultural standards that keep out our pork and our dairy and our chickens. And Vietnam, don't dump shrimp into our markets and put the good people of Louisiana on our coast out of work. This is what people have to understand. It's the non-tariff cheating that matters the most. And when they want to talk to us, come talk to us about that.
Okay, can we go back to Elon Musk for a second? Because I'm glad that you brought that up. He also took a shot at you personally on X, and he's going against the administration with respect to the tariff policy. The president has said in the coming months he may leave the administration. Peter, is there a rift internally?
No, I mean, Elon, when he's in his Doge lane is great, but we understand what's going on here. We just have to understand. Elon sells cars. And he's in Texas assembling cars that have big parts of that car from Mexico, China. The batteries come from Japan or China. The electronics come from Taiwan. And he's simply protecting his own interests, as any business person would do. We're more concerned about Detroit building Cadillacs with American engines. And that's what this is all about. So it's fine. There's no riff here. Look, Elon, he's got X. He's got a big microphone. We don't mind him saying whatever he wants. But just the American people need to understand that we understand what that's all about.
Right.
And it's fine. It's fine.
Let's go to autos, because that's another issue, and you're bringing it up a couple of times. The CEO of Ford said on Fox News that the auto CEOs are talking to the administration. Obviously, American companies do assembly here, but they still import, and they do assembly elsewhere, but also import the parts. And he said the concern on their side is to keep the price of the car down, and that's the concern for the American consumer as well. He said he's having conversations with the administration about that. How are the two sides going to work together to ensure that the American people aren't paying more for American-made cars? Those parts are really crucial here.
Well, we're working beautifully with industry on all of this. If you read carefully about what we've done, there's a contingent in the whole agreement where we're waiting in terms of tariffing the parts until we get some of that supply chain from the USMCA zone. So we're doing things like that. But I'll tell you this, Stellantis has no business laying off 900 UAW members for 2 months. That's the kind of thing that's irresponsible, and they shouldn't be doing that. What they should be focusing on is getting those auto parts factories that have dust and cobwebs in them ramped back up and boosting up their capacity utilization. And one of the problems with Stellantis, and let's be honest, it used to be Chrysler, used to be one of the big three, but it's owned by Fiat, and it gets 70% of its engines for some of its models from where? Italy.
Yeah.
That's not acceptable. I tell you why, Jackie. Look, if we don't have a solid auto industry when we have problems in the world, we're going to be speaking some other language. I mean, if we didn't have the auto factories of Detroit during World War II, we'd be speaking German east of the Continental Divide and Japanese west. We won that war with our military might, and we have to defend ourselves. We have to defend our jobs. And we can manufacture again. This whole idea that we can't be a manufacturing nation, the only reason why we're not, Jackie, is because the world cheats us.
We innovate here.
It's because the world cheats us.
We come up with great technological advances, but we need to bring that manufacturing back. We need to make ships here. We need to make automobiles here. We need to make our medicine here so that our adversaries essentially don't put us in a corner. I mean, I totally understand that.
Yeah.
The flip side of the auto issue, for example, this news that Jaguar Land Rover is going to suspend shipments, or they're going to pause them in April. They're saying they want to develop their mid to long-term plans. And I'm thinking to myself, because of an attractive corporate tax rate that President Trump is putting out there for companies, could you see companies like this say, you know what, it makes more sense for us to pay lower tax and manufacture in America?
Oh, they're going to flock in here, Jackie. And by the way, when I said earlier that every tariff dollar that we raise is going to come back to the American people, one of the ways it's going to come back is with a deduction for Americans who buy American cars. That's going to be a big deduction for that. And then expensing, we're going to have 100% expensing for companies that come in to manufacture here in America. So let Jaguar and whatever think about what they want to do, but the ones who get here the soonest are the ones who are going to make the highest profits and the ones who are going to help propel the S&P 500 to record highs.
All right. We will be watching, and we hope to have more conversations with you, sir, White House Senior Counselor for Trade and Manufacturing. Peter Navarro, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.